Okay, so we now finally get to the R Markdown part of this R Markdown uh, series of videos. So far, what I've been teaching you is called Plain Markdown, and that it is an extremely useful tool in and of itself. It becomes especially useful once we start allowing ourselves the flexibility to use programming code in our document itself. So I'm going to start introducing you now to R Markdown, which is exactly the tool that we need to do this. So if I can get it to move, there we go. So what do we actually want? We want something where you can write your normal text of your document using Markdown, which we already know how to do. And we want something that will allow us to include R code, which we might use for, say, running our ANOVAs or for creating pretty data visualizations. If you're taking my class, you're about to learn all of this stuff a little bit later on, but maybe you already know how to do those things. And we want something that'll be able to build into HTML, PDF, Word documents, and so on. And this is precisely the job that R Markdown is intended to solve. So this time around, what I'm going to do is just throw you in the deep end, and I'm going to create an R Markdown document. And then afterwards, we're going to kind of dissect it and have a look at what just happened. All right. So I'm going back over to my RStudio Cloud, and I will go File, New File, just click on the thing that says R Markdown, and it brings up a little dialog, and we'll call it sort of my first R Markdown. And the author will be me. My name is Danielle Navarro, pretty sure, hope so. It allows you, notice here, you can choose your output format. HTML is the default, but you could make it produce a PDF file, or yes, if you have the right software installed, you could get it to produce a Word document. But for now, let's just stick with HTML. So we'll click OK, and it opens up a whole document with a bunch of stuff in here. And if you're like me, the first time you see this stuff, you actually might find it slightly intimidating. It's filled with a whole lot of information that is actually useful, but I also find that for the first time I do anything, I like to start with something very, very simple. So what we're going to do is delete everything except these few lines up the top, right, that in between these dashes. We're going to leave that exactly as it is, and we're just going to start typing. So we'll go here, save it, and I'll call it, I don't know, my RMD. Why am I? Ignore me. My RMD 01.rmd. I don't know why I'm calling it that. I just am going with it. You can call it whatever you like, but notice that the file extension is now RMD with a capital R. So for a markdown file, you just called it .md. For R Markdown, you put the letter R in front of it. Okay, so we've saved it. We now have an R Markdown document. So this is this part of the document is plain Markdown. I can make some things italics and other things bold. I'm going to delete that because it just drives me nuts. I can make lists just like before. Okay, so far we are using the skills that we learned in the previous section on Markdown. Save this. Now, where it said preview before, it says knit now. So okay, we'll knit it. And we'll press the button, a bunch of things happen, and up comes a document. So this is quite similar to what we've seen before with our output, right? So we have it saying, yep, this is plain markdown. We've got italics and bold. This thing looks like a heading. This is a subheading. So this information about the author and the title and the date was all being supplied by that stuff at the start of the document, and everything down here is what I've just written. Okay, so far all I have done is used Markdown. Now, what if I wanted to include some code? So what I can do over here is go code, insert chunk, and we do that, and you'll notice what it's done is put 3 backticks, then a squiggly bracket with R next to it there, and 3 backticks again. So this now is an R chunk, and all I'm going to do in here is type something. This is no longer Markdown. I'm going to go type print hello world, and I will save this again and kind of go knit, and we're going to get some output. There we go. Okay, so we've got the same document we had before. Now what you see in the output is something that first has, yep, that was our R code, the thing that I typed, and this under here is the output of our R code. If you're taking my class, we're going to talk a lot more later on about different things that you can do in here. If you know R already, you know perfectly well that you can put lots of interesting things in the R chunk. But for now, all I want to illustrate is that that part is R. And I'll close this and kind of go notice the output. Type like that, and we'll go save and knit it again. I'm just adding it so that I can be a little bit clearer that, yep, I can have my header, then I've got some markdown, I've got some R stuff, and then I've got more markdown again. So that is the gist of how we create our markdown documents. What's important when creating our markdown documents is understanding what you've just created. So it turns out, you know, the document that I just wrote isn't exactly the same as the one that you're seeing on the screen now, but hopefully you can see that it's close enough that we can use it. There's the document itself with a blue background apparently, but this is the same document for all intents and purposes. The thing to pay attention to is that there are 3 different parts to it. Up the top, inside the 3 hyphens, is called, that part there is called the YAML header, and it's used to specify metadata, so it tells you the title of the document, the author, the date, and it produces some of the output, but so some of those things appear in the final document, right? But some of it is also used to do things like say, hey, the output, please create an HTML document at the end. This area here inside the backticks with this squiggly R is R code. So that part is not Markdown, that is R, and it follows different rules. So the things you have to write in there has to be R. Everything else, all the rest of it, this is Markdown. So the skills that we've just learned in creating Markdown documents can be used to write all of your surrounding text. So you can kind of imagine if you were writing up a report or something, you know, you would be able to type lots of things. They go into my document. This is, I did these things, I did these other things, and you could write your normal essays or documents, things like that, and then every now and then you might go, oh, I need to do an analysis in there. So then you would create an R chunk, you would include the code for your R chunk, and then it would run the analysis inside your document, which is kind of cool, I like to think. I think it's cool. I'm going to assume or pretend that other people think it's cool too. So I will stop this one here. Play around with that. And when we come back for the next video, I'll talk about how to customize your output. And I will stop this really.